Welcome back, and if you can believe it, it is yet another episode of the Loose Framing Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin Olich, and joining me as always are my compatriots.
Jesse Brock, hello.
And I'm Hillary Weber.
Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Can't believe it, another podcast
Another
episode.
podcast.
I love
know.
that intro.
What episode number
We're
are we on?
still around.
No one is more amazed by that than I am.
I think we're like in the 20s at this point.
I was trying to think about that because our guest coming up here in a second, which we'll introduce, has been doing a podcast for a while, and he's on episode 30, and I was like, how do we compare to that? It seems like we've been doing this for a while. Well, we have a great show coming up. We're going to be talking with Kevin and Ryan from Two Stories Media, Stories plural.
Yep.
I learned that when I was trying to look up more about their company, and I just typed in Two Story. Don't type in Two Story. Two Stories Media.
So the story behind Two Stories is that it's a husband-wife company. And they were driving home one day and they were trying to figure out a name for the company. And she had her version and he had his version. And then that just kind of like was an epiphany for them, like two stories. It's my story and it's your stories. It's Two Stories Media. And that's where it came from. But I honestly thought it was kind of an homage to like a two-story house. So when I went to their offices, I was like, oh, it's only one story. And they're like, no, you got it all wrong. So yes, it's Two Stories.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up because I actually forgot to ask where the name came from. So, well, ladies, with that, we'll be right back with our guests, Ryan and Kevin from Two Stories Media. Welcome back to Loose Framing Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin Olich, and joining me now is Ryan Sousa and Kevin Echemendia. Nailed it. That was the fourth try for those at home listening. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
You guys are with Two Stories Media. I like to do like what I call the good housekeeping questions at the start of this, just to get those out of the way. So want to introduce yourselves, give me a little like micro background, and then we'll talk about what Two Stories Media is.
My name is Kevin Echemendia. I'm the creative producer and director of photography of Two Stories Media. Also owner and co-founder with my wife, Brittany, who's our photographer and producer.
And how long have you been around for?
Oh, man. So Two Stories has existed for 6 years now.
Okay. Wow. Time really flies. Like,
Yep.
Factor in COVID and just time disappeared for some reason.
Yeah.
Ryan, how about you?
Ryan, I am a local DP. I came up shooting a lot of like reality style shows, outdoor, run and gun. Got to travel a lot. Decided to move on and freelance. That's when I linked up with Kevin and started working together a lot. And he brought me on. And for Two Stories, I shoot, edit, help on set, pretty much wherever needed. Kind of like a.
So are you both native Floridians? Are you from this area originally? No.
Neither of us.
Neither of you are.
Nope.
How did you end up in Tampa Bay?
All right. So I went to Florida State University, graduated from there, and out of school, I got a full-time job at IMG Academy. Okay. So I was actually their videographer and editor.
Down Sarasota, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Bradenton, Sarasota area. So I was there for 2 years, and then once I moved on from there, I went to a production company in Bradenton and worked there for a year. That entire time lived in St. Petersburg. So out of school, Brittany and I decided to move down to this region. She got a job in Clearwater. I got a job in Bradenton. So St. Pete was where it was kind of that like semi-middle ground to live.
Yeah. For those not from the Tampa area, that's still quite a bit of a drive every day. So I don't blame you for wanting to start something up here and nix that drive out.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
I actually grew up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Graduated high school. Actually took welding in high school. Enjoyed it, but wanted to try something different. Always loved movies, playing with cameras, and actually moved to Tampa to go to school 15 years ago, and
been here ever since.
Been here ever since. Yep.
I have a background in freelancing too. I mean, I think everyone who starts out in film does.
Sure. Yeah.
But you have a company now, and I'm always interested to know how you decide to sort of coalesce your friends, your equipment, all the favors you have, and then start up a company overnight. It's a really big jump. It is a scary one, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little about, I know it was with you and your wife, but let's bring Ryan into the conversation too. Like, how did that the creation Two Stories come about?
Yeah, so living here for 11 years, I started the LLC 9 years ago. And it was just because after so many freelance checks, you realize the tax implications on that. So 9 years ago, I started the LLC, started figuring a few things out. And then about 7 years ago, I realized that I started needing some extra people, some extra gear, and started kind of getting that first idea of becoming a production company. And then, 6 years ago, Two Stories was formally formed, and just started buying gear, hiring more freelancers, and hired our first full-timer 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just kind of continued to grow from that point. Now we have five people full-time, myself, Brittany, Dylan, Ryan, and Ken is our senior editor, and then hire about 15 to 20 freelancers very regularly throughout the year.
Yeah. I think even whether you own a production company or you're still freelancing, you're still chasing down paychecks.
Yes.
It's just the nature,
Always,
the nature of the business. But there's that added pressure now that you have people that work for you. That now you're not the one trying to track down the paycheck. You're trying to track down the paycheck and pay others with it.
Payroll comes around every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He has to make sure I'm not tracking him down for a paycheck.
Right. That's one way to lose employees really quick.
Yeah.
How is that extra pressure on your shoulders, and how did you sort of adapt to that?
For better or for worse, COVID definitely helped kind of curve that fear, if you will. We learned a lot during the COVID year, came out of that side, and funny enough, actually hired Ryan at the end of COVID. Started realizing that we were ramping up on work pretty significantly. Ever since, there's just physically no work during COVID. I mean, ever since, to say we were chasing our tails was an understatement, or is an understatement. Ever since then, you just kind of realized, like, yes, payroll comes around every 2 weeks. Rent is due every 30 days. You have all these bills, but the jobs just keep coming. I mean, Tampa Bay as a whole, just there's plenty of work. There really is, and we also have the benefit of having multiple elements to our company. So we're not just commercial, we're not just film, we're not just this. We have multiple avenues of revenue coming in, which really does, I think, help us out.
We stay pretty flexible.
And that's something I want to talk to you guys about now. So let's talk a little bit about what Two Stories is, right? I think the old moniker everyone used to use is production company. I think that's so outmoded, because if all you do is service work, you're not going to be in this business for very long, right?
Sure.
You need to bring on extra things. Like
Absolutely.
So would you identify yourself as a branding company? And if so, like how have you integrated branding into what you're doing when you're talking with clients?
Well, our tagline, funny enough, is where story and brand meet. So, yes, I mean, that's just how it is in today's day and age. I mean, everything is social media, website, digital driven. And if you're not able to integrate your client's brand into what they're telling, then you're not going to get very far in all your collateral. So we work a lot with commercial marketing and advertising agencies, and also within those departments. So if we have we have our own clients as well. So within our clientele, we're dealing with the marketing director or the brand representative or the ad agency that buys for wherever they're selling their products or services. So that is what allows us to continue to move forward and kind of give our clients what they need, is integrating their brand into the story element of what they're trying to tell.
Yeah. I think if you look at the production companies that are in Tampa Bay, or really anywhere in the U.S., and you look at their catalog of work, clients go to those particular production companies because they have a specific look or feel to them, which is largely driven by the creative people, above the line within that production company or branding company. What, in your opinion, is your style and what makes it unique?
That's a great question. Actually, I thought I had it for a second, and then I was like,
I looked at all your reels, and they're very distinct. Like you look at anyone else in the area, and it's completely different.
Yeah, we definitely have a style, and I think, like you said, it just comes from the people that are doing it. I don't know that I can classify it as something other than it's just us.
Yeah.
Right.
Then is there a particular client or particular product or type of creative video or package that you seem to be drawn to, or you draw enough clients from those particular sectors that sort of defines who you guys are?
That's a good question.
We were actually just recently talking about this internally because two external individuals kind of asked us and kind of dove into it a little bit more. We do not focus on any one sector, if you will. What we have come to realize is our style is a little bit more bright, vibrant, and color driven. So we will lean into color significantly in a lot of our collateral, which helps us with selling our services to clients and other entities. That's kind of what we've realized. I mean, we do work for University of South Florida, several of their colleges. Obviously, the green and the gold is something that we lean into pretty heavily. We've done stuff for Tampa International Airport, and then we also do work up in Jacksonville with a company called Farah & Farah. They're a law firm. Go over to Orlando, and we have organizations like Tee It Up for the Troops that we do a lot of work with. Go down to Sarasota with Trademark Interiors. So we're all over Florida, but then when you hone in the visuals of it all, I mean, you just see the color, the brighter elements kind of come through in all of those different looks.
I think that's spot on. That is what I'm drawn to when I look at your reel of productions you've done. Is it is so clean and bright and vibrant, and if I can use the word happy, like it just has it's a really good positive emotion to it. And I think sometimes, particularly if you went through a film school, you're sort of drawn to that like
moody,
grittier, moody,
noir,
more cinematic look. Not to be pedantic for that, but like, and that works for some clients, but not for all clients.
Yes,
and Farah & Farah is a great example because
that was a little more contrasty and moody.
Yeah, but we were able to integrate that pop of color and when we had the highlights kind of integrated in, they were on they were on the verge of blooming, but that was what we wanted. But man, was it contrasty. I mean, you were actually
very contrasty.
You were the one who gaffed the project, and we had a very distinct lookbook, and we were going back and forth very heavily to
making sure it was the right shapes, the right amount of contrast without going too far,
giving the client what they were wanting, but we were also dealing with an agency. We were the production company working for the agency who's working for the client. And, we were brought on because of the color and the poppy element that they wanted, but the agency wanted to ensure that we were seeing significant amount of shape and contrast, that normal film noir look that you were just mentioning. So we all had to play nice, but it's ultimately what the client wanted. And I think we integrated it really well.
Yeah, came out great.
You've been doing this, so for 5 years, even though you had the LLC for 9. Has the pandemic aside, has the focus of clients shifted over time from sort of traditional 30, 60-second packages to being younger and younger demographic, focusing more and more on social media?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even to the extent of the last, 4 months, we've actually been getting requests to deliver vertical content as well. So not only are we going to shoot a 30 or 60 second or a little 15-second ad for Tampa International, we did 3 15 seconds for them. But they're also starting to ask for vertical content on top of it. So I mean, everybody seems to be pushing that direction of content for social, online, rather than your traditional.
And when you're thinking about a brand, how do you integrate a story you're trying to tell in more of a longer length platform, like a 30, 60 second, and then pare that same story down to 15 seconds, but still have a cohesion across all platforms? Like, how difficult is that to sort of wrap your head around as far as storytelling goes?
I don't think it's that difficult at all. I mean, you have a 60 second and you're going to have cut downs. I mean, that's part of what storytelling is you have to be able to tell that story in different manners and across different platforms, especially with how things are nowadays. So I don't personally think it's overly difficult. I think we'll run into the occasional complicated story piece. I mean, we've had Creative Women was a good example where we had a 6-minute final deliverable.
Final, I think, was the initial was 5.
Okay.
But we ended up over that. But the first cut was more like 8 because it was like we had so much good content.
Yeah.
But there was also 2 30-second vertical and a 15-second vertical. The 30-second we were able to kind of condense to make it feel like a trailer, but that 15 actually was pretty
15
good.
was tough. It
That
was
was
like,
tough.
what's the basically 1 or 2 lines that you can say this encompasses the whole story or the story we're trying to tell
Yep.
in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
You have 2 lines and that's it.
So as a DP, when you're approaching that, are you shooting the vertical content separate, or are you just framing it normally and then compressing it, squeezing it in post?
we're starting to shoot both now.
Okay.
We were on the front end of people starting to ask. It was, just maybe frame a little wider than you normally
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
So there's a little wiggle room there. But we've actually put it on our shot list now. It goes on every shot list that we need a certain amount of shots to tell the story vertical. So because you can crop it in, but if you're framing for horizontal, you can tell it doesn't look
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You have to shoot some stuff vertical. So
You
we've started
can get
doing
away
that.
with 1 or 2 shots doing that, especially if you get to post and you're like, man, I really just kind of need to make this one work. No big
Yeah.
deal. But if that vertical piece is, let's say, 8 shots, you want 6 of the 8 to actually be shot vertically, frame it properly, expose it properly, and not be doing this 3-time punch in to get it right.
And that makes sense. So when it's becoming more and more prevalent, they're adding on these requests to have vertical. Do you see that being asked in addition to, as far as billing goes, and how you're putting in your pitches and your bids for clients, or are they adjusting and understanding that this is extra content, we have to pay for this extra content? Because I'm interested to see how the market's shifting.
It's being integrated into the initial
Okay.
bid and initial ask. I mean, just last week I sent 2 bids that the deliverables were, one was a 4 ask deliverable, another one was a 7, and it was just integrated in. So yeah, there's an added cost to that because there's time, multiple hours, or let's say an extra day of editing just to accompany those deliverables. But it's not necessarily being an add-on anymore. It's being asked up front, and when you're sending a bid of X dollars, there's 4 horizontals and 3 verticals, and it's just part of the ask now.
Yeah.
So coming out of the pandemic, I hate dwelling on the pandemic, but I do think it's interesting. We just announced we had our first $1 billion year as our parent company. Awesome. Tampa Bay's been leading the way in tourism since the pandemic ended. Florida as a whole has just been exploding. I don't think we're winning the battle necessarily in feature or narrative scripted television, but commercials, we have come out of the pandemic as one of the top commercial entities in the U.S., and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Have you seen just an explosion in new clients, new productions going on post-pandemic in the Tampa? We'll just say Florida at large.
Sure.
Well, you said that these mics are brand new.
Brand new, yes.
So
it must be working.
Yeah,
Something's working for us.
there we go. I mean, all right. There's a direct correlation.
But I mean, I think we've seen maybe a boom in more of a variety of commercial work since the pandemic. Definitely a lot more commercial work. I mean, we've added a lot of new clients in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So
Clients that we
I think
definitely
that
did not
is
have
the
3 years ago.
correlation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Ryan, just from a crew point of view, I think I don't want to be too harsh in film schools, but every college is a film school now, right?
Yeah.
Or some sort of film
sure.
program, and I think that was extremely popular. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that's when I got in.
And I think it's because equipment was so cost prohibitive to jump into the game. Now it's just become compressed, and now it's super inexpensive to jump in. Do you find that film is becoming more and more, I don't want to say blue collar, but less degree or film school driven and more just, hey, I was doing this yesterday, but today I really wanted to get into film, so I went out and bought a camera. I learned how to edit, and I just jumped into the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's 100% accurate. I think film school is kind of starting to take a back seat to, I can go on Amazon and buy a camera for a couple $100 and get a decent image out of it, and then you start learning. And I mean, we have an intern program at TSM, and they are in a film school type of program, but it's not to the level of like, a straight on film school that you're going to go and learn for 4 years. They take some classes, they learn a little bit, but when they come with us, they actually get the real world experience and they learn. And some of them have asked, should I go to a film school or should I just keep doing? I'm like, you're in it now. Why would you go spend a bunch of more money to do what you're already doing? Keep talking to us, keep making connections, go buy some gear. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive. And yeah, I mean, even phones now.
Yeah.
You can shoot a movie on a
100%,
phone, you know?
And I don't want to be too harsh. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to get an academic degree.
Absolutely.
To learn how to do things. But at the same time, you're never going to run into the same issues you do on just a day on a set.
Of course.
Right? Like
Well, that's
you
it.
will learn more just by doing sometimes than you would in 2-3 semesters at a college.
And that's what we tell them. It's the experience that people care about. Can you do it? You're going to have to get up there. You're going to have to mess up a few times, and you'll learn.
Yeah.
And if you learn and get better, you'll keep getting hired.
So, I mean, we're in a weird space as a state. I can say this definitively in my role as film commissioner and working on the Film Florida Film Commissioner Council. We have a very aging population of filmmakers, right? People that started out in Miami Vice, you know, back in the day, that have been here doing this for 35, 40 years. And they're either coming up on a retirement age or an age where, unfortunately, they're literally just passing on. But then we have this really skewed young new workforce coming up, and there's not a whole lot of in between. What is your overall take on the workforce? And this is for both you guys, just in Tampa Bay in general. I mean, do you find the talent and the crew that you need, or are you finding that you have to cast a broader net to bring in people from outside?
We don't need to look anywhere outside of Tampa Bay. It's remarkably easy to find any crew position you need here.
The only issue we have is, they're already booked, you know? So we have a good Rolodex. I mean, he just texted me the other day, like, who's that guy we used on this one? Because I know I'm missing somebody I need to reach out to. You know, we have a pretty good Rolodex between everybody that we work with. And no, we're never reaching out past the Tampa Bay area, really, unless we're going to Jacksonville, Miami, and we need a local for something, you know. But even then, it's still Florida based.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think sometimes we get a misnomer from people that come in from out of state, like, there's no crew here. It's like, no, there's plenty of crew here. You just either don't know who they are or you can't afford them because they have better opportunities. I'm not going to take $150 a day with no kit when I can just wait an hour and get a phone call and be making 5 times that.
Absolutely.
It's the crew's here. There's absolutely no denying it, and I personally don't like when I hear that same sentiment. And you hear it, you know, I hear it twice a month. You probably hear it significantly more.
Every day almost.
And it's just not accurate.
No,
it's
not.
It's just plain and simple.
Agree. That's very good to hear. So I appreciate that. So let's look at if you had a crystal ball, the industry's changed so much just in 5 years, God forbid, 10, 20 years. But where do you think we're going in the very near future? I mean, I think Meta was sort of a fizzle. Don't know whether that's going to come back or not. They just announced they have a subscrition fee this morning. I was like, really?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. For customer service, that's what you're buying for. And $8 a month. It's like Twitter, right? Like, we'll answer your emails and your questions if you pay us. Like, what? That's a weird way to approach your customer service base. But like, what's the next thing, right?
The next thing, that's a good question.
I'll go back to the vertical content. I think that's just going to, I think right now you're still seeing horizontal outweigh vertical just when the deliverables are asked of you. But I think what we're going to see is that swap. I think that's going to be the next element in productions is more times than not we're going to film vertical compared to horizontal. I think that's what we're going to see in the next 5 years.
Do you think it's just because the clientele, the demographic is just aging out? Now they're focusing on the new consumer who holds their phone all day.
Everybody's on their phone. You got to appeal to the new consumer.
I mean, it went from film to tape to digital. So
natural progression. That makes sense.
It's just how things are right now looking and trending. I mean,
it could change.
We may shift back to horizontal. A lot of apps will maybe shift gears a little bit for XYZ reason. But as of today, I think in the next, I'd say in next 18 months, I think the deliverable ask when you're doing a production is going to be more vertical than horizontal.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast not too long ago, but like we had Hefty in market shooting. It was a very big commercial. I mean, they had John Cena as the star in it, and I think it was over $1 million.
Sure.
Whole thing was shot vertical.
There you
Whole
go.
thing. That was the first time I saw $1 million vertically shot commercial. It's because they sliced it up 10 ways from Sunday, and they had 50 different platforms. Everyone was unique to the platform. It's like, it makes sense. They were shooting the same amount of content, but it was just vertical.
But when you only need to cut it down to 15 seconds, now you can have 5 commercials from the same shoot that you might have got 130 or a couple 30s, right?
But it was eye-opening to me because I know people have been tacking it on and shooting vertical, but like the whole thing vertical, it was just kind of, we're there now.
Yeah, we have yet to get a solely vertical ask, but it's
coming.
It's coming. I expect it, you know, in the near future, next 6 months. I do think we're gonna get our first vertical only ask,
Probably,
which will be just crazy.
Yeah.
To think that 2 years ago just wasn't gonna happen. You didn't think so.
I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but we are in the media age to the point where there is not an industry, I think, on the planet that is not using social media, video production in some way, shape, or form to either explain what they do, connect with their internal crew, right, or to introduce what they do to new medias, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So what are some of the big mistakes you see clients are making when they come to you and they're doing things just horribly wrong? And you look at it, it's like, oh, we could do that so much better. Like, what is that thing that jumps out immediately?
Fine line to walk, buddy.
Yeah, you don't have to call anyone out.
Oh, that's a good one though.
You want it or me?
Oof, I don't know.
I know you look at somebody's
take
stuff
it?
and like, oh wow, that's not good
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's
Sure.
just they're not tagging it or whoever knows, you know. But I was just curious what your opinions would be.
That's a good one. You can take this one.
All right.
You can take that
All right. I was wondering if you wanted it.
one. You can take it.
I think one of the things that I see on a lot of sets is allowing someone who's not on set to make a decision.
That's a good one.
It happens
Yeah.
all too often. I was a freelancer on a project last week that on 2 different occasions, someone who was not even in the state of Florida was making a decision, but yet they were not there.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't even in, like, it's bad enough if you're not even on set, but you're 20 minutes down the road because you had to dip out for something. It's like, even then I don't like that answer because I'm like, you're not here right now.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the situation that's unfolding.
But this person wasn't even in the state. And they had 2 opportunities to veto something that was going on. And it was just unfortunate to see the producer didn't feel empowered to make what they felt to be the right decision in those 2 moments.
Yeah.
One of them, I kind of sort of understood that the person calling in reason. I'll give them a little credit there. I was like, okay, I kind of can understand why you're telling us that they don't want that background for the interview is what it was. The other one, it made no sense to me. And ultimately what it was they didn't want slow motion to be used for 2 certain shots. That's the furthest I'll take that statement. And it didn't make sense. And even the producer and the DP were like, this is meant for this. It's, and you know, but those are 2 small examples.
Yeah.
But it happens too often that someone's on set. And go ahead.
You're not wrong, and I think that's sort of a casualty of COVID and everyone getting comfortable Zooming and Skyping. And now there's so many different ways to stream live, literally on set. You know, Dick can have a pop-up streaming.
We have started to have to incorporate that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well,
And you're right. If
producers are
someone
out
in
of
Seattle
state,
or New York, and they're sitting there.
they want to zoom in and
I'll give them a little bit of credit because they at least are seeing what the camera's
they're
seeing.
listening, they're watching, they see
But
what we're looking
when
at.
someone's making a phone call or someone snaps a photo, you know, the back of the frame of the monitor, they'll walk up to, you know, client monitor, take a photo and send it to someone. And then that person will say like, no, don't do that. Or can we change the background? Or, you know, in that case, you know, oh no, that's not a slow motion shot. And it was just like, but yeah, it should 100% should have been. Even like I said, the producer and the DP both were like, no, but you know, they didn't feel empowered to. They felt that they had to ask permission for something that, quite frankly, was an easy decision. If they're zooming in and they're actually able to see what's going on for longer than 90 seconds, fine, I'll give them a little credit. There, you know, that's who has that authority at that moment. It's no big deal. It just happens too often. Someone sends a text or a phone call, and it's just like, no, don't do that. It's like, you're not
it changes
here.
your whole day.
And
Like, well, we just set up for an hour, so now we have to flip. Spend another hour setting up.
So,
frustrating.
but it does come from that COVID world. It does come from that. It's just.
Well, I think, I mean, in addition to just the zooming and comfortability of that, I think it disempowered people to make decisions.
Sure.
And it's just sort of coalesced the power at the top where it used to be a little more filtered down.
Yeah.
And, okay, no, you're this person, you're that person. I trust you. That's why we hired you.
Yeah, we hired you
that's the
as
irony.
a producer for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Where they're hiring the creatives to be creative for their creative eye and their creative look.
Yeah.
But then they take the creativity away.
Yeah. Frustrating.
It is.
I can tell in
It
your
is.
faces.
It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it hits you upside the head when it happens.
Let's switch to something positive now. So maybe you do want to call it a client this time. What has been your favorite project you've worked on thus far? It doesn't have to be in the state of Florida. It could be anywhere.
Definitely Tampa Bay related because that's where we're from.
Yeah.
What's yours?
I'm torn between two. The campaign we did for Tampa International Parking, I was the DP on that, and that was just an awesome time. We had a good budget, a good crew. It was a great time. But then the cycling documentary that we're finishing up right now in post, that was a blast. Completely different, a little more run and gun, but just an amazing shoot overall, and it was great.
I'm surprised you still like it after.
I do. I know. I do.
You've been in post on it.
I've been in the editing bay for 3 weeks on that, and these lights are a little bright.
Tampa International. I'm gonna say out of parking and the comedic. I'm gonna say the comedic campaign.
Well, you were the DP on that.
Yeah, I was the
so
DP on that one. So produced the parking campaign. DP'd the comedic campaign. The comedic one, it's starting to roll out right now, and it's very entertaining. Nice little take on Geico's commercials where you kind of get hit with a funny moment at the tail end once everything kind of builds up. That was one of our motivations. But yeah, that was Tampa International Airport, their comedic campaign. There's three videos. Third one has not yet released, but the first one has, which was skiing and quite entertaining. Go on.
They're prolific on their social media accounts.
They are.
We're constantly
They are
like
ruthless.
stealing their memes.
It is
really good.
They do
Phenomenal.
have good ones. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very
Whoever's
good sense of
running
humor
that
over
is.
there.
Yes.
So this is just for you, Kevin. I have never run a company with my wife. Or
Seems to be a trendy question as of late.
or a
is,
significant
yes.
partner. I don't want to put you on the spot, but like
Everyone else does. Go ahead.
Well, sure, let's do it. Is that difficult? How do you balance that work play aspect to your marriage and your business?
All right. So I have my office at the studio. She has her office at the house.
Okay.
That helps tremendously right off the bat. So we've had several years of kind of working through this. We have 2 kids now, and we just now really know where the boundaries are. There's been some days that I was done for the day, and she would ask a question, and I would chip, and vice versa. She was done for the day, and I'd ask a question, and she would chip. And we've kind of learned, hey, that's not okay, because not only just in a marriage, you just have to find the boundaries, and then you realize after the fact, like, oh yeah, it is 6 o'clock at night, and we should not be bringing that up. It's just kind of
We never intended this, but I think you are our 4th married or husband-wife production company team.
Wow.
So it seems to be like more and more like that's the thing.
Common, yeah.
Which is surprising to me.
Yeah.
I like going to work and coming home and having something different there. Like
Yeah.
separate church and state.
One of the biggest things that really helps us is the fact that we have distinctly different responsibilities within the company.
Yeah.
So of course, there's overlap. Don't get me wrong. I mean, our whole team, there's overlap. So there's no excluding her and I having overlap. She produces some jobs that I'll end up DPing, or I'll produce a job that she ends up being the photographer on, or whatever the case may be. So there's overlap, but we have definitely come to realize that she has her distinct responsibilities and I have mine, and that really does help. I mean, there'll be a work day that we don't even talk about work in any capacity. If I'm at the office or I'm on set and we talk via text, let's say, it's because we're talking about who's doing pickup with the kids and what's for dinner. and we don't even, there's literally no work exchange that
Yeah.
day. I'm doing my job, she's doing hers, and we just reconvene at night for dinner. So
Yeah, no, there's some good advice there because again, like this seems to be more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
So remember that if you're out there.
have distinct responsibilities,
Yes.
and it kind of helps
and
both.
maybe separate the spaces too. That seems to be
Yeah, that
one.
seems
Yeah.
to work pretty well because
Yeah.
then they can just go, all right, well, yeah, we work together, but we're in separate
Separate,
locations
yeah.
today.
So we're getting the high sign behind the scenes here from Jesse. Let's start to wrap this up. But before we do, I want to have one last question for both of you guys. What still excites you when you wake up in the morning and makes you want to do this? Like a job's a job at the end of the day sometimes, right? You got to make a paycheck, but there has to be something exciting about this still that makes you want to get up and do it.
Sure.
Going on set.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's what allows me to enjoy just, running a company, if you will. I'm not one who is going to, I mean, not for the foreseeable future. I am not going to be, 9 to 5 at the studio. I'm
Yeah.
just not. I'm not going to be in front of my desk. I mean, I know that I have to have, let's say, depends on how busy we are, minimum, obviously, 1 upwards of 3 days at the office. If, depends on how the schedule aligns. But if I'm not on set 1 to 3 days a week, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
It's just there's always something that needs to happen. We talked about payroll has to happen. I have to answer client emails. I have to sell a job to get us to the next job, right? But if I'm not on set, I'm losing my mind. That's what gets me. That's what gets me going. I mean, I gaffed for last week. I was a cam op and a gaffer last week on 2 separate jobs. This upcoming week, we are doing product photos for a client of ours. What else do we have? We have another, we're doing a campaign for a nonprofit.
Yep. The nonprofit.
Nonprofit. So it's just what it comes down to. And I mean, I will produce, I will DP, I will first AC, I will gaff. And I still get a lot of phone calls as a gaffer, and it really just, keeps me out in the field, keeps me young. I got 2 kids, so I run around plenty.
Yeah.
Throwing them around is my workout, but also slinging sandbags and C-stands and combos. I mean, it does not faze me. I'd rather be out in the field and
Well, it helps with the 1 ton that we've built too, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
for
true.
rentals and stuff. So.
Yeah. I mean, we have our 1.5 ton. We got a lot of gear. We got
Yeah, you got camera bodies and lenses and
Yep.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure you're linked in the description below
Yep.
Cool.
for all your services. But what about you, Ryan?
I'm going to piggyback off that a little because being on set is definitely my happy place. It's where I like to
Yeah.
be. But because every day is kind of different. And that's the one thing that always gets me. That was why I didn't want to stay a welder. It was the same thing every day, monotonous. I go in, I lay a couple beads down and I go home, Been as I said, I've been editing for the last few weeks, so I'm getting a little stir crazy, ready to get out of the house. But every week is different. Every day sometimes is different. You never know if I'm driving to Jacksonville to gaff a lawyer commercial, if I'm, going to IMG to shoot a sports profile on a student athlete, or going to Tampa International. Everything is always different, and it just keeps it interesting. And I just love being on set. And me and Kevin are the same, where we can shoot, we can produce, we can gaff. First AC, we're kind of versatile. We've done it all as we've come up, and we've gotten good enough at each that we can still do them.
Yeah. But don't worry, we know when we need the crew from Tampa
exactly.
to fill in the other roles. So we
there
don't
is a time and
There's only
place.
so many hats you can wear.
yeah, and we
Exactly.
don't do the 1-man bands. I mean, we're
No,
a production company. We're I think bare minimum, bottom of the barrel, it's a 3-man job. And because some clients just need that, budgets, right?
Yep.
And that's fine. But then if we're up to 7, 10, 15 people, we're bringing in the freelancers in the area. Go back to that, and it's all Tampa based.
Yeah.
It's all Tampa Bay based, really.
So bouncing off that answer, not just the physical aspect of being on set, but what creatively is still driving you guys to try new things, do something different, evolve as filmmakers?
Seeing all the just phenomenal content that's always put out nowadays. I mean, because of social media, you can follow 10 different DPs, 15 different agencies. There's a gaffer out in Denver that I love what he is able to do with multiple lights, 2 lights, the manner in which he utilizes his gear. And he actually has a 1.5 ton that is somewhat similar to ours. And I follow him, and I actually purposely set his content to notify me when he posts, because I know I'm going to gain value from it.
Yeah.
So seeing all of these different inspirations is what creatively keeps me going, because I'll see something on those channels or those posts and I'm going to go, wow, I really like the utilization of that key light, or how creatively they were able to shape an interview in a ridiculously tight or on the inverse, ridiculously large space.
Yeah.
And really just, it pushes me, you know, when I see a 2-person interview and I see the B cam angle and I'm like, my God, that is.
How did you think of that?
That
You know,
that
sometimes-
was. I mean, just for the cycling documentary. I mean, we grabbed a bunch of stills straight off of social media, about 8, 9 different posts comprised like our lookbook for some cycling, some exterior, some interviews. I mean, there was an ad on YouTube that got me inspired for the interview that I sent you.
We do that all the time. We'll send stuff back and forth. And
Yeah.
I'm similar with him, where it's like there's just so much content out there
Yep.
that you consume that it's like, how could you
And
not?
shockingly good content.
Well,
Yes.
exactly.
It's
If you follow the right people, right, you can go down these rabbit holes of stupidness, right? But if you follow creative people that are trying to get better like you are, there's so much creativity out there that every day I see something and I go, how can I up my game a little bit more, you know?
So, Kevin, in addition to being a branding company, what other services does Two Stories Media provide?
Gear.
Gear?
A lot of gear.
And what types of gear?
Yeah, so we've spent the last call it year and a half really building up our gear. We have a 1.5 ton fully loaded with all the fun goodies that a production would traditionally need, and it's not your traditional 1 ton. We call it a 1.5 ton because it's I mean we're maxing that guy out.
Yeah.
It's beefy.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So when you're talking about a 1.5 ton grip and electric package, what does that look like today?
So because we kind of came up in G&E, I definitely feel like I came up in as a grip and kind of worked my way up to being a gaffer and now a DP. I've realized that a lot of stuff on a traditional 1 ton just isn't overly useful. It's just kind of there and you don't really use it. So ours, we have a senior magliner cart. We have our brand new innovative cart. We have
Does all type.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like a medium size does all. It's not
Yeah.
a full size does all, but it works for us.
Yeah.
Aperture 1200D, Aperture 600D. We got light panel Geminis, got some Nan lights on there, Titan tubes, which everyone loves a kit of Titan tubes. A lot of combos, C-stand, sandbags.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fully loaded.
Are the days of like just incandescent lights
Yes,
and
gone.
So it's all
Just gone.
sky panels, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
LEDs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
that's-
still have a 1200 HMI if we need it. Sometimes we'll
Yeah.
throw it in and be like, oh, we might need more light today.
Yep.
And it'll get used a couple times a year.
Yeah, but that's really all it comes down to. It's
all
all
LED
LED
now.
It's all LED.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I mean, we have cameras, lenses. We got a set of Cook lenses, Alexa Mini, Red Gemini, Sony F55, Sony FX3s. We got 2 of those.
The iron glass Soviet lenses.
Yep, the
We
Soviet
just got
lenses.
those back rehoused.
What we used on the cycling
Cycling.
documentary. So yeah, we have a wide variety of gear, cameras, lenses, 1 ton lighting. I mean, we have gear going out all the time.
Yeah.
Was just an hour before we recorded this podcast, it was just hit up by an ESPN producer that's doing something on with the Yankees, and they want some lighting.
Yeah, that's great, particularly in a market like Tampa, which is more commercial focused anyway. I mean, there's some good rental houses.
Oh,
here.
of
No
course,
lie.
Of course.
Great
and
rental houses.
we will grab stuff from
use-
those rental
Yeah.
houses as well
But
because
I
we need
think-
extra
I feel
gear.
like the days of like the 5, 10 ton trucks, unless you're on a feature, like it's not mobile enough
Yep.
anymore, right? You need to be nimble. So it's great to know that you guys have a lot of gear to rent. So fortunately, we have to wrap this up here, guys. Let's let you have a chance to plug yourselves on social media as well as Two Stories Media. So where can they find more?
Everything is at Two Stories Media. Pretty simple. We are very heavily involved on Instagram. We have a pretty solid YouTube library nowadays. And I think those are really the two.
Those are the main two for sure.
Yeah, you know, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Facebook if you so choose. But Instagram and YouTube, go ahead and check those out.
You mentioned how important it is to have a curated experience on Instagram or wherever to really find those creative inspirations. So where can people find your own pages?
For me, it's just Two Stories Media. I have a personal one. You're just gonna see a lot of my dogs, my kids, my wife. You know, I again that whole homework life balance that we talked about. So yeah, my personal one, Kevin.Etchmandia for Instagram. You're just gonna see a lot of my just regular life. So if you're looking for actual inspiration and production company elements, just stick to Two Stories Media.
Okay. What about you, Ryan?
I'm on Instagram. It's just at Ryan Souza. Not very active, but you know,
fair enough.
A lot of creatives are like, I'll post some stuff here and there.
Yeah.
You know,
Two Stories Media one. We post all the time. Yeah. We got Dylan, who's our content creator, social media manager, and he is constantly recording us, which I think he's also doing right now.
Yeah,
currently.
And even though we have other cameras going on and obviously recording into a mic, but you know, we have content being curated for ourselves on a very regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys. You're great fixtures here in Tampa Bay. You're super supportive of the community. I know you guys are Film Florida members. Really appreciate everything you guys do. So keep it up. And for those watching at home, please visit us at Two Stories Media to learn more about what these guys do and how you can engage with their services. Otherwise, be right back. And welcome back. Joining us again is Jesse Brock and Hillary Weber. Ladies, what do you think of the interview?
It was really insightful. My voice squeaked. I was just so excited.
Like a chipmunk.
No, the guys are really funny, you know, off camera and on camera. But I loved all their stories about, you know, working with the international airport and doing the comedic bits. And, you know, I think that they have a really cool Rolodex of stuff that they've been working on. And it was really interesting for you to pick their brain about, like, all the stuff they're doing.
Yeah. Hillary, what did you think?
I always love the storytelling angle, so I thought that was particularly interesting to hear about, where they're talking about how they're able to take every single idea and break that down into something for different formats, whether it's 15 seconds or a minute, just really trying to get to like what the heart of that story is and how to communicate that in the most effective way.
Yeah. I mean, the industry's really changing. You know, I mentioned the Hefty commercial where they shot the whole thing vertical. And they obviously mentioned, and we've had other guests mention how it's becoming more and more prevalent.
Like you mentioned, everyone has that angle now. Everyone is shooting for social media, no matter who you are.
You have to be. I mean, if you're not communicating with half of your demographic, unless you're selling like, you know, Boomer Depends or something like that. Probably should cut that out.
You mean they don't have a TikTok?
Yeah.
I was gonna say coffins, and that ended up much better. So
keep it in.
We're doing fabulous on this outro. That's for you, Will.
Yeah, but that's primarily what I'm hired to do. It's like half events and half social media output. So I was really taking a lot of that away from the interview.
Yeah, and they have excellent social media. So for those who are tuning in, if you haven't actually looked at their Instagram, they're very prolific. They post all the time, very funny, very insightful clips.
And their editing is fast and attention grabbing, and it looks so good.
They know what they're doing, definitely. But you know, listening to them, I was also reminded of just how many podcasts I consume. I was just thinking, like, you know, social media, sure, and Instagram, but I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Well, they have their own, right?
They had one in the past, so I'm not sure if it's active right now, but they did
Filmmaker's Guide to the Industry.
Yes.
Was that Kevin and someone else, or was that Two Stories?
No, it was Kevin and Josh Long from White Line Creative, who I think we also did a podcast on very early on. Yeah.
Yep. Like podcast number 3 or something. Crazy.
Yes, it's been a bit. But it reminded me that there is, you know, I asked the question of like what inspires you to keep going, to evolve and do different things. I think it's really interesting to hear from different people in the industry or just really out in the world experiencing things. So let's end with a conversation about just the podcast we're listening to. I believe you did a little poll there, Jesse, on our social media.
I asked some of our coworkers and then our social media followers, what is your favorite filmmaking podcast or pop culture film actor podcast? One of the top ones was How Did This Get Made? Who the hosts are Jason Matsukas and Paul Scheer. who are both from that TV show, The League, but they're also comedians and pretty well known in their own right. Another one was I Saw What You Did. Smartless, which I don't know if you'd be a fan because you know who one of the Smartless hosts is?
I've never heard of it.
Jason Bateman.
Oh, no, I'm out already. Yeah, I'm out. Sorry.
Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes from Will and Grace, and Will Arnett. And Will Arnett and Jason Bateman are actually like lifelong friends. So their chemistry is really interesting to hear. And I actually did listen to one of their episodes. The Maya Rudolph episode was really funny. And there's a lot of improvisation that goes on inside that.
Jason Bateman always sounds surprised when he's talking. Like, oh,
and that's not any different on a podcast. He still
that was
sounds like that.
terrible impression, but like it just
No, I felt it. I got what you were trying to say.
I don't know, it just grates on my nerves sometimes. So I'm sorry if you like that particular podcast, but not my flavor. What about you, Hillary?
I am not a big podcast listener. It really depends on the guest for me. I recently listened to a great series on the Program to Chill podcast with researcher Wendy Painting. That's a fun one. The only film one that I really have any sort of preference for, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Scott Feinberg's podcast for The Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
He does a really, really like deep dive with an individual artist. They talk for like 2 hours. It's always really informative. So that's probably the best film one that I know of.
Yeah. What about you personally, Jesse? Not the ones you did.
Personally, when I am in the mood to listen to a podcast, sometimes I'm in the mood for music and sometimes I'm in the mood for a conversation. I actually stumbled upon this podcast by looking up an actor. So I had watched The Righteous Gemstones when it came out, I think 2018 or 2019. And that caused me to go on a huge Danny McBride kick. I watched everything he made. He's a great comedic writer. I think he's great. But I was looking up different interviews and different podcasts of his. And I stumbled upon Armchair Expert, which is hosted by Dax Shepard and his co-host Monica Padman. And the interview was like an hour and a half and just kind of broke down his career from A to B to C to Z, from A to Z. Broke down his career from A to Z. And it was just really insightful. And then after that episode wrapped, it rolled right into the next one, which was David Harbour from Stranger Things. And that one was like 2.5 hours. And a cool angle from Dax Shepard's style of interviewing is that Dax actually went to school and graduated in anthropology. So his questions to his guests are about like Hollywood and things like that, like acting and how to make it in this industry. But they're also very philosophical and he gets really deep. He battled alcoholism and is like 15 years or 20 years sober. So a lot of times that gets brought up, but it's just really deep kind of like big picture about life. And that episode with David Harbour, it was so good. Like David Harbour is a very smart individual and I definitely recommend it. Armchair Expert.
So why am I the only one of the three of us that listens to like trash garbage podcasts? Like, that seems to what I'm consuming here.
Because they're fun.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, for those who don't know, it takes me about an hour and 15, hour and a half to commute every day. So I have a lot of time to go through podcasts, but like it's either crappy paranormal style podcasts. I watch a lot of paranormal shows. Like Night Owl is fantastic. It's one of my favorites. It's this little paranormal team out of Austin, which Austin's a hugely haunted city if you believe in those types of things. But they have these really cool investigations they do. That's one of my favorites. Welcome to Night Vale is great, which they have like a live road show they do every once in a while. That one came to Tampa Theater here. But like film wise, you know, I prefer vlogs over podcasts a little more, just because I don't know, it's a visual medium. I think you can have some fun things, especially if people are pulling clips to analyze. But I love Best of the Worst, Half in the Bag, Review.
What was the one we listened to on our way to Savannah? Was that Half in the Bag?
That was Half in the Bag.
It was so funny.
It's a little raunchy, and sometimes
funny.
I wonder how they haven't been canceled yet. But I don't think they would care if they were. In fact, just recently they were in the news because they somehow acquired every tape from this horrible 80s children's movie called Nuki. And it was terrible film, like unwatchable bad. But they acquired as many tapes as they could find, and then they put it into a wood chipper and destroyed it, and then vacuum sealed like the last remaining copy to inflate the price of this terrible movie, and it ended up selling for like $60,000. Like old VHS tapes are being traded right now like cryptocurrency, which I didn't know. It's very strange.
I'm regretting getting rid of mine now.
but I learned about this whole trend through their podcast. Or I guess it's a vlog, but yeah, that's what I listened to. So
the episode that me and you listened to was them watching Twilight, completely blinded to what Twilight's even about.
Yes.
I think they just knew it was about vampires, but they didn't understand like how terrible it actually was.
They hadn't watched the entire series, so they came in on like the second to last one, and they just had no idea what's going on. Like, why is she dying? Why is she praying? And I'd never actually even seen it, but it was hilarious.
Really
this is like
entertaining.
live commentary essentially.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been listening to. I don't know why anyone's still listening to us ramble on about the podcast.
I think kind of understanding where we come from and what we like to listen to kind of makes sense for our perspectives on this podcast.
Yeah, I guess
Honestly.
maybe.
Yeah.
It's a very positive way to look at it.
It is. You always bring in like the comedic angle and the kind of more grittier side of life.
Wow.
And I like your historic, perspective on things. Like when we were interviewing for Tampa Theater, you knew the architect's name and all the other theaters that they've done, John Eberson. And then I don't know where I fit. Where do I fit? I don't know. Philosophical. Tell me about life.
Yeah. We'll let the guests comment below about where you fit into this podcast. And maybe we should do a poll on that next time.
Yeah, we should.
But with that, we're probably going way too long. But we hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Definitely check out Two Stories Media. And Jesse Brock, where can they find more, assuming they actually want to listen to more?
If you do want to listen to more, you should. We are Loose Framing Podcast. Listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us at Film Tampa Bay.
And with that, back next time
For another episode.